Aloha, I'm Lyla Berg. Thank you for tuning in to Island Focus. As you can see, we're broadcasting today's program from my home in respect for the Shelter in Place Directive so that you can meet the people who continue to make a difference in our everyday lives. Mahalo for joining us. Thank you for joining us today. I'm online with Dr. Patrick Sullivan, who is the CEO and founder of Oceanit. Appreciate you being with us today.
This is really interesting, too, to do this online like this. I think it's awesome.
Dr. Sullivan, it's really an honor for us to be with you today and for you to join us, because I know that Oceanit is doing some pretty phenomenal things at this time. Could you explain a little bit more about what your company does and where you are in addressing this COVID-19 situation we're in?
What we do is a mission. We call mind to market company. So we think of things and drive it to market. So at a high level, that's what we do. And we're in a variety of areas in aerospace and life sciences. And it may appear to be an eclectic group of things, but we invent things from fundamental science. So during this time, we took some technology that we started working on probably 6 years ago on a new kind of artificial intelligence that's more human style, human-like. And then about 3.5 years ago, we started a program with a federal group called DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. And we thought, gee, can we apply this human-style intelligence to something like genomics, where we could then come up with causality in biology versus correlation. So most of medicine today is done with correlation. And that means let's do 1 million people that smoke and 1 million people that don't and see who lives longer, and then I'll write a report. But you need 1 million people over a couple lifetimes. So we thought, historically, this has happened where guys like Galileo said, you know, the planets, they move because of math. Guys, it's not religion. Of course, they arrested him and because the church was threatened, but it turns out math has a lot to do with it. So we thought, okay, if we can apply this thinking to developing a therapy for purpose, something where we can say, I need a molecule and I want to wrestle down the COVID-19 and make it inoperable. So we literally launched a program. It's been about 4 weeks. We're doing like a designer molecule, essentially. And the results look really good. So we're doing it in a very interesting way. So instead of using probability the way people do, you know, correlation medicine, we're using a grammar. And by that, I mean, we're creating we did this with DARPA. We produced the grammar of RNA to be able to calculate things that are so hard and complex, they're uncalculatable. So kind of the short version of that is, you know, the Human Genome Project, where they spent, you know, billions of dollars in many years. They produced sequence of humans, but nobody figured out how to do the shape of the molecule. We can do that with this technique. And so we are literally building this molecule here in Honolulu. And they said, guys, we got months. And I know it sounds impossible, but that's what we're here for. So they're working on it. It's been really exciting. We're getting really good results. And so the idea, for example, to open Hawaiʻi back up, we figured it's a molecule that's only specific. It's a lock and key. So it only attaches to the COVID and nothing else. Everything else it doesn't care about. And so the idea then is that you would do a spit in a cup thing. You spit in the cup, you pour it in this little, like a little well. And in, you know, 5-10 minutes, it tells you, like a pregnancy kit, a test. It says your test works, and by the way, you don't have it or you do. And by doing that and then connecting that with a phone app, you can do this for cheap, fast, and you can connect everybody in a database and say, look, you know, I came up negative, here's my result, and so I don't need to be quarantined. I'm not expressing anything. But we can make this stuff so cheaply that you can, I think, do it pretty much on a daily basis and do it pretty fast until we get a vaccine.
It's phenomenal that this is also happening in Hawaii.
What we do is is Hawaiian, I say, because it's the local culture that really built the business and the way we collaborate.
What do you see as we emerge?
As we emerge on the other side of this, there's a couple of things. One is that we'll realize, we need to diversify the economy, which I think maybe people will take more seriously. But second, how we work together, how the community can pull together, because we're kind of unique, I think, in the way that the culture of aloha doesn't just live in Waikiki, it's everywhere. And you see this around the whole community. So I think it's going to pull everybody together. And ultimately, what we'll do is we'll be working more collaboratively in the future to build the future Hawaii really deserves, which I think is not just a great place to visit, but an incredible place to live.
Well, it really warms my heart, and we're all filled with so many emotions, different confusing emotions at the same time. You've given us some things to think about and also a great deal of hope. We will come out of this, but we will come out of this well, and actually probably with even more aloha.
I think so.
Thank you so much for your time. You've given us some things to think about. It's pretty exciting that perhaps the center of one of the aspects of the solution come from your company and from Hawaii.
I was on the call with some people in DC for hours yesterday in the morning because we're trying to do this. The idea is to do this on a national or global scale. And that process, we're trying to map out. So how do we get FDA approval, manufacturing, huge manufacturing scale. So it's a high risk thing.
We're very hopeful and love your energy. Thank you so much for spending the time with us, and good luck to you. We'll wait to hear some more in the future. Thank you so much, Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha. We've just had the opportunity to meet Dr. Patrick Sullivan, CEO and founder of Oceanit, with some very, very cool ideas on how we will emerge even better than we are now. Aloha. Tuning into Island Focus with us today and enjoying my meeting with Lauren Zirbel, who is the CEO and Executive Director of the Hawaii Food Industry Association here in Hawaii. Thank you for joining us. Please explain to us a little more about what the Food Industry Association is about and how are you adjusting to this time right now with COVID-19?
So the food industry represents retail grocers, suppliers, distributors, wholesalers, and really the whole supply chain. And our mission is to provide a voice for the food and beverage industry and ensure that public policy doesn't negatively impact our food supply chain. Some of them have gone out of business, and it's really tragic to see the small local manufacturers not be able to weather this crisis because they just don't have the resources to do so. Some of our larger members have been forced to do furloughs and layoffs. They are seeing 60 to 80% losses in sales because hotels and restaurants have been closed. And obviously, tourists made up a huge percent of our population, and they were the highest spending portion of our population. So that has had a really devastating impact on the food industry and on all of the people that we employ.
What kind of actions are you taking right now? What would you recommend for local businesses and us locals?
Try to support your local food manufacturers and growers, and when you see them in the grocery store, because we have to remember that if we allow all of these food manufacturers and producers to go out of business, then they won't be there for us when we need them. And we really do need them to continue to be here and employ people and provide food products. And that's part of what makes this state so special is all of these specialized products that people make, and to see them go out of business and be gone forever would be just beyond tragic. So, we encourage people now more than ever, buy local, support local, and just make that conscious effort to support your local businesses.
One of the things that we really rely upon are the agricultural products.
I've actually been talking with a lot of our, working with the Farm Bureau Association and talking with our retailers about how we can promote more local agriculture products and as well as local manufacturers. We don't want to forget about them because they make a lot of the food that is available here, and it's really important, and beverages. And we don't want to lose those local businesses. So if we can continue to support all of the products that are grown and made locally here in Hawaii, that would really go a long way to improving our economic situation going forward. And especially right now with 37% unemployment, it's important more than ever to support local businesses that are going to be able to employ our people.
And so what kind of actions and changes have you made or are you about to institute so that those products can be more visible?
Well, one of the things projects we're working on right now is creating a Made in Hawaii Festival marketplace. And because we put on the Made in Hawaii Festival every year, and I think it's becoming increasingly clear that will likely not be allowed this year. So we're working with our sponsors and partners on how to really promote local vendors and use that same marketing strategy to draw, the 60,000 people we used to get at the festival and potentially more across the nation to support Made in Hawaii products, because we need these businesses to find a venue to sell their products that's not in the hotels, because we don't know when they'll reopen, and just to kind of provide them with a place to grow and thrive and drive sales, like we've always done with the festival, but really just create kind of a virtual interactive experience that's really enjoyable for consumers.
That sounds actually very exciting, because then the neighbor islands can also participate, and I'm sure they're worried as well.
Oh yeah, our neighbor island communities have been hit really hard, depending on how reliant they were on tourism. Some areas maybe haven't been hit as badly as Oahu because they didn't depend so much on that tourism dollar. And obviously, if you own a business in Waikiki right now, you're completely devastated. You might be better off somewhere on the neighbor islands, but yeah, everyone is definitely feeling that 20% loss in the population in their sales right now.
And relative to food production or food distribution, our neighbor islands don't need to worry, right?
No. So that's one of our main messages, is that we will not be cut off from the shipping industry. It's not a hurricane, it's a virus. And we have been receiving multiple assurances that, our food supply chain is strong. We are continuing to bring food into the state. We will continue to feed people. And also, I did want to put in there that if you have extra money, to consider donating money to the Hawaii Food Bank, because a lot of people are experiencing hunger right now. They're unemployed and they're unable to purchase food. So supporting the food bank is really important right now.
That was a great message. Thank you so much. And parting thoughts to give us a little hope that when we emerge, and we will actually be stronger, and your organization will be actually even more viable.
Yeah, I mean, we're hopeful because we see a lot of people being very creative with how to address this challenge and finding solutions that allow them to stay in business. And the federal government is really helping out with these loans to small businesses. So we're very appreciative to our congressional leadership for being supportive of small businesses, and we're hopeful that eventually things will go back to normal, and hopefully what Dr. Sullivan was talking about, that's very encouraging, and God bless all of our scientists for helping us solve this crisis as well.
I'm very hopeful, and thank you for being part of this.
Thank you so much. Really appreciated being on.
And thank you too for tuning in to my conversation with Lauren Zirbel, who is the Executive Director for the Hawaii Food Industry Association. Glad you could be with us. We have the pleasure of meeting Dr. James Ireland, who's with the state firefighters at the airport today. Happy you could be with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Ireland, very much for taking the time with your dog to sit and help us understand what the firefighters at the airport are doing. And relative to COVID-19, what can we expect in terms of your actions?
First of all, this cluster of infected individuals in a hospital in China was reported, and that was in a very early January, kind of reported to the world. And I took notice to that, and I actually put it on my Twitter. I don't put much on my Twitter. I'm about a twice a year Twitter guy. I mean, unlike others, but I did put that on my Twitter first week in January. I said, we ought to just keep an eye on this. And I alerted my kind of the chiefs and the administration at the airport that, this is something that's in China. It looks like it's very contagious. But at that point, we didn't even know it was a coronavirus. Within a very short time, and remember, this is only 100 days ago, roughly. This wasn't that long ago. But we did learn it was a coronavirus. And we've had experiences with coronaviruses. There's a very benign coronavirus that causes the common cold. Viruses like SARS in 2003 and MERS, which were both coronaviruses that were very, very deadly. Maybe 10% of people who got SARS died. Now, fortunately, that wasn't super contagious, and that kind of died out and didn't become a global pandemic as we saw or as we're seeing with COVID-19. These type of viruses that can escape local regions and become pandemics, and a lot of them are transmitted from animals. So close contact, like they talk about this wet market with these various exotic animals that have these viruses that can jump into humans and then cause a pandemic. So that was about 100 days ago, and we started really looking at people coming from Asia, and the president blocked travel from Asia. But we also knew that people from Asia went to the mainland US. And so we always were aware that because we were being so vigilant with China and the CDC and looking at people coming from Asia, we also knew that people could go from Asia to, for instance, Seattle, and those folks could come to Hawaii. Now that we do have cases in Hawaii, the government, I think, did the very wise and prudent thing in basically doing the shutdown and isolation and blocking travel, knowing that it obviously has been very, very devastating to our economy and also just our way of life. And, just sitting here at home, and you're at home doing this interview is kind of how we're doing things now. When we see the news anchors from home, and so drastic changes, but necessary. So we didn't repeat what's been happening in New York City, where they're having, unfortunately, I don't know, something like 600 or 700 people a day die. Now, I know it's a bigger place, but we didn't want that here.
What can we anticipate as we emerge from this? Because there will be a time when this whole virus situation will wane. What can we anticipate in terms of changes at the airport or in changes in our lifestyle?
Well, the great news is that we're only getting a few single-digit cases every day now, which means all these things people have done, which have been hardships for a lot of people, especially the people out of work, have worked. They're working. But obviously, you can't do this forever. You can't stay at home and you can't not work. And so we do, and the government
and we can't stop the planes.
Cannot. So we, meaning everyone in Hawaii, the government especially, needs a plan to kind of undo what we've done and do it slowly and prudently. But I think what's going to make things easier, well, number one is once we get a vaccine, I think we're going to be in great shape, because an effective vaccine won't put an end to this, but will really put a big damper on the spread of this disease. But that, from what people are saying, could be 6 to 18 months from now. So that's the long-term future, the vaccine. But in the short term, I think the way you, in my opinion, the way you open things back up is to continue the social distancing, the stuff that's easier to do, and then expand testing, particularly for people who are coming into the state. And I don't think the leadership has quite settled on a method yet. But one thing that comes to mind is, if anybody's ever tried to bring a dog into Hawaii, there's certain things you have to do. You have to make sure they don't have rabies, and there's antibody tests, and a vet has to check them, and so forth. And the similar kind of thing could be done for humans as this testing becomes more sophisticated, especially the antibody testing. I mean, I could envision someone having to get an antibody test 3 or 4 days before they travel. It's not perfect, but it would rule out not a very recent infection within 5 days, but it could rule out an infection that's a little older than that. And then when they get here, perhaps they could get another test or have a shorter amount of quarantine because they got that test before they came. And you basically invite people here who are COVID-free and have a mechanism to filter that. And knowing no mechanism is perfect, but that would be one way, in my opinion, on, quote, opening things up. And then I think hopefully everybody just reconnecting with things that are important at home and spending more time at home. I think as negative as it is that we have to do it, there's a huge positive. I've enjoyed playing cards with my family and busting out board games. And so I hope we can capitalize on that since we're stuck at home anyway.
Thank you, Dr. Ireland, very much for sharing your thoughts. And I hope that you will be on the team of decision makers in the future who will help us protect ourselves with the visitor industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
And thank you to viewing audience for tuning in. You've had the opportunity to listen to Dr. James Ireland with the state firefighters at the airport. Mahalo. Thank you for joining me today in my conversation with Sherry Minor-McNamara, who is the CEO of the Hawaii Chamber of Commerce. To help us understand, your organization is membership driven. What actions are you taking relative to the situation we're in right now with COVID-19?
Sure. So the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii is a statewide membership business organization, and we have more than 2,000 members across the islands, representing 200,000 employees from different industries as well as different sized businesses. Majority of our membership is small business with less than probably 50 employees. And we just made 170 years this year. So we've existed for a long time as a voice of business in Hawaii. The Chamber has gone through different phases, and obviously today we're in an entirely different situation. It's not business as usual. There's a new norm now. And as the voice of business and the business advocate, we need to ensure that we are here to support our business community.
How are you addressing the needs of your memberships?
Internally, our team started working from home since March 17. So we were in rapid response mode in changing the way we work. And more people are doing that now, obviously, as well as how we conduct our business. We're very event driven, so we had to adjust accordingly. And that's why we have a number of webinars and learning opportunities through the webinars. But that's based on what the needs are of our membership. How do they exist? How do they continue to do business during this time? As well as prepare them as we transition to reopening our economy and making it stronger, making it more innovative. And so those are the kind of subject matters that we've been serving our members since the mid-March to determine what is the pulse and what the needs are. And I can tell you about a month ago, business already have been impacted. Many of them, 50% of them, decided to close their doors or cut their hours and reduce benefits or cut positions. So it's definitely COVID-19 has definitely had a tremendous and devastating impact on our business community.
And when we talk about the needs of your membership, can you share maybe how some of your members, the businesses, I think it's very responsible of them to have closed early on behalf of the safety of their employees as well as the public. Well, how are they changing, or how are they addressing their own needs? It's a very open-ended time. Anything is possible.
Well, absolutely. Public health is of utmost importance, right? We want to ensure that our employees, consumers, for those who are open, are safe and protected. And so that's how we need to make sure that public health is the utmost priority. At the same time, though, we need to ensure that businesses who provide jobs, all the jobs obviously, can continue to sustain themselves and continue to remain open as we reopen our economy. And again, that's why we've been advocating on a consistent basis that while the federal relief has provided some support, many businesses have indicated that's not enough. We need more support from the state. And so that's why we've been advocating tirelessly to get some kind of immediate relief so that we can continue to move our economy forward, even in this very limited time, but at least mitigates some of the huge impact it's having on our businesses and the economy.
How do you envision us emerging? Because it will not be the same. And many businesses will stay open, but they'll have to redefine themselves. How do you envision us emerging?
Absolutely. No doubt this is a challenging time period. And as we move forward and charter a new path forward, it will be different. It's not going to go back to the way it was. Obviously, we have the public health aspect involved now. But in these times, though, we need to really, business need to reflect and determine what does the next business look like. And this is where innovation and creativity and a new mode of doing business can provide opportunities. And so we need to change that mindset now and think about the next phase in Hawaii and what businesses look like. So I just want to say that during this challenging and difficult times, that many businesses are still stepping up despite businesses going through some challenging times. They're contributing to the front line. They're donating resources. They're donating money. They're donating in so many different ways because they understand that's their role too, to support the broader community. And so it's very encouraging to see that. And that's why we're launching the 1-808 campaign to highlight the stories, because while we're hearing a lot of the negative and challenging news, it's also important to highlight the hope and the resilience that our people and the businesses have during this time.
And thank you for sharing that. As we wrap up our conversation, could you tell us a little bit more about that 1-808 campaign?
Yeah, it's an opportunity to highlight the stories that we're hearing on how businesses are supporting the broader community. To have a hub where business can provide support and exchange, what kind of support is needed. And so that will be launched next week. So we're excited about that. But again, it's a way to promote the kind of hope we need right now. And as we look into the future, while this is having an impact on the livelihood, let's change our mindsets and start thinking, okay, we're going to do this together. We're going to get through this together, and we're going to work together to chart a new path forward for Hawaii.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I love the way you said we're going to change our mindset. I'd like to suggest that actually we're going back to what we know. We know about aloha and working together. And thank you very much for being an example of how that will look in a tangible way.
Thank you.
And thank you to the viewing audience for joining us today on Island Focus in my conversation with Sherry Minor McNamara, who is the CEO for the Hawaii Chamber of Commerce. Mahalo. Thank you for being with us today on Island Focus at this very unique time in our collective history. I'm Lyla Berg. On behalf of the crew of Island Focus, as well as the team of committed volunteers and staff at Ōlelo Community Media, aloha and malama pono. Take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. See you soon.